So we're going to have a look at this purpose-driven community work, and it's something pretty organic. I haven't even Googled it. You know, sometimes you Google and go, oh, it is a thing. Like, I remember I was positive that I made up the term collective impact. And so I started writing about it, and then I put it in Google and went, oh, damn. So it might be something like that, but this purpose-driven idea is something that Michelle and I have been working on as we've been blending asset-based community development with art of hosting practices and processes. So let me find it. Okay. All right. So this is kind of the basic idea. So you'll see with the purpose-driven work on the right-hand side is looking at community engagement is a place where we're discovering purpose. So when we're initially going out and kind of engaging with people and having those conversations and opening it up, that's where we're kind of discovering where we want to go, what direction, and the collective we, not just as in our work, but whoever it is that we're talking with. Very importantly, that community is at the center of that. And then community development would be intentionally co-creating that purpose. So making sure that all stakeholders around the table and, you know, community members being at the center, that we can then very intentionally co-create what moving forward with intention and purpose would look like. And I'm going to show you a couple of examples of how we do that, of keeping intention and purpose at the center. And then participatory community building is where we're aligning and mobilizing. So I also think of that as building capacity. So when we're kind of looking at the purpose with community and going, right now, what fits where for this community? You know, we know that these are not cookie cutter models. And that each community is very unique. So how do we align those and have everyone not necessarily on the same page? Might be about some things, but it could just be that we're aligning people's different values and ways of working together, or their principles. So I was thinking about it last night, and thinking of these key steps to asset mapping, which we look at in asset-based community development. And I think there's some alignment there. This slide that you're looking at now was created at like 7 a.m. this morning. Just thinking of, does this sit? Maybe it doesn't. Really happy to be open for discussion around that. But thinking around that community engagement, when we're first discovering that purpose, we are identifying. So we're identifying what's there. And as ABCD talks about, we're building community from the inside out. So we're building on what's already there, that glass half full. So I thought, yep, that works for me. Then looking at the community development, if we're co-creating, well, that is where we're connecting. So if we've identified the assets already and we're starting to connect them up, then we're finding those linkages, we're building relationships, we're being very purposeful in how we do that and moving forward. And then the aligning and mobilizing purpose, well, that seems to pretty naturally align there with the mobilize of asset mapping. So this was just an initial thought, like I said, about do they sit together? With the purpose-driven community work that Michelle and I have been doing, it's been in workshops that we deliver, but also with our grassroots community work, with whatever it is that we do. So I'll show you a couple of examples. How we keep that kind of intention. It's a personal intention of Michelle and I, and Fiona, who we've done quite a few workshops with now as well. It's very intentional that we start with what are our principles of working together? So when we deliver a workshop, we always do it with a core team. We always make sure that we've got a number of interested people in that core team from the local area. So we don't helicopter in and just do something in your area. We actually have that conversation with people about who else needs to be in this. And we have a design day together, the full day before the workshop starts, where we all co-design that together. So we're keeping people at the center of that. We're acknowledging other people's wisdom and experience and inviting them to be part of that. So a couple of the different ways is, you'll see in the photo, this was in, where is that? Oh, Bristol. This was in Bristol in the UK. And this is the core team from the local government area there who we were working with. And we had a design up on the wall, and these are all the different tools that we could use and different processes that we could teach for participants who are coming along. And we co-designed that together according to who was coming. So we could be really responsive and organic to what was arriving. The top right one, the step up to practice. This is a very intentional practice that we put in every workshop. And it's at the end of day one where people see, this is our flow, this is how we roll. We don't use PowerPoint, we use these posters, we all sit in circle, we use a talking piece. Now for the next couple of days, who in the circle would like to step up to practice? You can co-host with us, we will coach you and teach you, create a safe environment where you can step up and really be part of this process, so you can have some hands-on learning. So when we leave your community, you've got this and you can teach others. So that's very purposeful as well, about making sure that that is there in all our workshops. Then the bottom left one is the conscious co-design that we've been developing over the last few years. And I won't go right into that. We did do this. It's in one of the recordings on YouTube very early on, a few weeks ago. But the main one thing I just want to point to here is what's around the outside, and that is the principles. So the principles are those, what ethics, values, and good practice guide you, who is invited at the center, and what are our principles of working together. And if we can hold those principles there very intentionally, it doesn't matter then what happens in that photo in Bristol, what happens at the workshop with the step up to practice, whatever happens that might create a groan zone or a disturbance or anything like that, we can go back to our principles every time. And there's been a few times we have done that, where something might have gone off on a tangent in project work or workshops, and where we've kind of called people back around and said, hang on a sec, let's revise our principles of working together. Do they still stand strong? Is it still our purpose? Is this what we're still standing by? Do we need to amend them, change them, whatever it might be? But we can always go back to those. So when we're thinking of this purpose-driven community work, I can't even think of a workshop Michelle and I might have done on our own in years. Like, even if it's a solo work, that it might be she's doing a job somewhere and I might be doing something else, it's still with this at the center. How do we more consciously co-create participatory design processes that are with community, not for community? So even when I'm called in to do a one-off job for something, whatever it might be, I'm still inviting the person who I'm talking with, who initially contacts me, or asking them who else needs to be in this space of the conversation about. It's kind of, it aligns with how we make sure things are tailor-made, but it's deeper than that. So it goes back into that purpose and intentionality, very much so. So yeah, that's where we've got up to with our thinking. Like I said, it's not a very long teach this morning. Well, it's not even really a teach, it's a share more than anything. So if we're discovering purpose or intentionally co-creating or aligning and mobilizing, at the core, we still need community to be there. So we're with community, not for community. So I'm going to stop there. Oh, hello. That's an old slide, but that's all right. This fits too. That was Mike Green. He says, starting anywhere leads everywhere. And I think that's a good summary probably for what we do think about with the purpose-driven community work, is that we do need to start somewhere. So you start somewhere and it'll lead everywhere. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen for the moment. And happy to open up to questions, reflections, conversation, discussion. And I can always put that slide back up if need be. So yeah, over to you guys. What do you think?